Kiwi, it's time to start a brand new Magic Treehouse. Book number 10, Ghost Town at Sundown. What do you think is going to happen in this book? What can you tell by the picture on the cover? Do you remember what happened at the end of last time? Does that give you any hints? All right, let's start reading and find out. Chapter 1, How Wild. Jack and Annie were sitting on the porch of their house. Annie was gazing down the street at the Frog Creek woods. Jack was reading a book. I have a feeling we should check the woods again, said Annie. Why, said Jack without looking up. A rabbit's hopping by, said Annie. So, we've seen rabbits before. Not like this one, said Annie. What do you mean? Jack stood up and looked with her. He saw a rabbit with very long legs hopping down their street. Soon the rabbit left the sidewalk and headed into the woods. He's a sign, said Annie. A sign of what, said Jack. That Morgan's back, said Annie. She jumped off the porch. Come on. But what about dinner, Jack said. Dad said it won't be ready soon. Don't worry, said Annie. You know when we leave the treehouse, time stops. She ran across their yard. Jack pulled on his backpack. Back in 10 minutes, he called through the screen door. Then he followed Annie. They hurried down their street and into the Frog Creek woods. The sun was setting above the trees. There he is, said Annie. The rabbit was standing in a ray of sunlight. When he saw them, he took off. Jack and Annie followed the rabbit until he vanished behind the tallest tree. I told you, see, said Annie, panting. She pointed up at the tree. Morgan Le Fay was waving to them from the magic treehouse high in the branches. Jack and Annie waved back at her. As always, Jack was very happy to see the enchantress librarian again. Come on up, she called. Annie and Jack started up the rope ladder. They climbed up to the treehouse. We followed a strange rabbit here, said Annie. Is he your friend? Perhaps, said Morgan. She smiled mysteriously. I have many odd friends, including us, said Annie. Morgan laughed. That's right. How are you, said Jack. I'm still having problems with Merlin, said the enchantress, which means you little time to do my real work. But soon you will both become master librarians, and that will be a big help to me. Jack smiled. He was going to be a master librarian who traveled through time and space. It was almost too good to be true. Are you ready to solve another riddle? Asked Morgan. Yes, said Jack and Annie together. Good, said Morgan. First, you'll need this for research. She pulled a book from her robe and handed it to Jack. It was the book that would help them on their journey. The title of the book was Days of the Wild West. On the cover was a picture of a western town on a prairie. Oh, wow, said Annie, the Wild West. Jack took a deep breath. Just how wild, he wondered. Morgan reached into the folds of her robe again and pulled out a scroll. She handed it to Annie. Read this when the treehouse lands, she said. Is it the riddle? Asked Jack. Yes, said Morgan. Then you'll only have 2 more to solve. Are you ready to go? Jack and Annie nodded. Annie pointed to the picture on the cover of the Wild West book. I wish we could go there, she said. The wind started to blow. Goodbye, said Morgan. Good luck. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Jack opened his eyes. Morgan Le Fay was gone, but a fly buzzed around his head. Chapter 2, Rattlesnake Flats. The air was hot and dry. Jack and Annie peeked outside. The treehouse had landed in a lone tree on a prairie. The sun was low in the sky. Right in front of them was the town from the cover of the book. In real life, it looked empty and spooky. To one side of the town was a patch of ground with several tombstones. That's creepy, said Annie. Yeah, said Jack. He took a deep breath. What's our riddle say? Annie held up the ancient scroll. She unrolled it, and then she and Jack read it together. Out of the blue, my lonely voice calls out to you. Who am I? Am I? Jack pushed his glasses into place and read the riddle again to himself. There must be a mistake, he said. Am I is written twice. Well, I don't hear any voices now, Annie said as she looked out the window. There were no human sounds at all, only the buzzing of flies and the whistling of the dry wind. Let's look at the book, Jack said. He opened the book. The pages were yellow with age. He found a picture of the town and read the words beneath it out loud. In the 1870s, Rattlesnake Flats was a rest stop for the stagecoach that carried passengers from Santa Fe, New Mexico to Fort Worth, Texas. When the creek dried up, everyone laughed. By 1880, it was a ghost town. Wow, a ghost town, said Annie, her eyes wide. Let's take a quick look around, said Jack, so we can leave before dark. Right, said Annie, let's hurry. She started down the rope ladder. Jack put the old book into his pack, and then he followed Annie down the ladder. They stopped by the tree and looked about. Tumbleweeds blew across the dry ground. Suddenly, something jumped past them. Yikes, they both said. But it was just a rabbit, a lone, long-legged rabbit hopping past them. Hey, he's just like that rabbit we saw at home, said Jack. Yeah, that rabbit must have been a sign of things to come, said Annie. The rabbit hopped across the prairie and out of sight. I better take notes, said Jack. He reached into his backpack and took out his notebook and pencil. He wrote, rabbits with long legs. What's that sound, said Annie. What sound, asked Jack. That rattling sound, said Annie. Jack looked up. What, he said. There. Annie pointed to a rattlesnake. It was about 100 feet away. It was coiled up and rattling. Jack took one look at the snake and ran. Annie ran too. They ran past the graveyard and right into the ghost town. I guess that's why this town is called Rattlesnake Flats, said Annie when they stopped. Jack looked around. The town was hardly big enough to call a town. There was one unpaved street and a few old buildings. It was quiet. Too quiet. Look, a store, said Annie. She pointed to a building. The faded sign said General Store. Let's look inside. Maybe the answer to the riddle is there. Jack and Annie stepped onto the porch. The wooden boards creaked loudly. The door had fallen off its hinges. They peeked inside. The air was thick with dust. Spider webs hung from the ceiling. Maybe we shouldn't go in, said Jack. But what if the answer's here, said Annie. Let's just take a quick look. Jack took a deep breath. Okay. He and Annie tiptoed into the store. Look, said Annie. She picked up a pair of rusty spurs. Careful, said Jack. He poked at other stuff in the store. An old feed sack, a rusted tin cup, a faded calendar dated 1878. Oh, wow, said Annie. She held up 2 cowboy hats. She put one on and handed the other one to Jack. For you. It's too dusty, said Jack. Just blow on it, said Annie. Jack blew on his hat. A cloud of dust rose up. Jack sneezed. Let's try it on, said Annie. Jack put the hat on. It nearly covered his eyes. Boots, said Annie. She pointed to a row of cowboy boots on a shelf. There are even small ones, like our sizes. Here's a pair for you. She handed the boots to Jack. They're not ours, he said. I know, but just try them on, said Annie. Jack turned his boots upside down and shook them as hard as he could. What are you doing? Annie asked, pulling on another pair of boots. Checking for scorpions, Jack said. Jack, Annie laughed, try them on. Jack sighed. He pulled off his sneakers and pushed his feet into the boots. He pushed and pushed. The boots were really stiff. Finally, he got his feet inside. Then he tried to walk. Ow, he said, forget it. He started to pull off the boots. What's that, Annie said. Jack froze. Piano music, said Annie. Maybe it's the voice in the riddle. Come on. Jack threw his sneakers into his backpack and hobbled after Annie. What do you think that sound is? You think Jack and Annie are going to find it? I bet they will next time. See you then, friends.